to Talk Tonight with Graham Gilbert.
Well, a Thursday night around the Super Radio Network and Talk Tonight. Our number 131269. Now, I know we've had credit cards and internet banking for a little while, but some of us oldies, we can remember back to when we would get a pay packet and we'd go and pay cash for things. Either up front or we'd pay things off. But we physically, went to a shop or physically went into the, when we were younger, it was Nesca, the power supplier where I lived. You'd go into the water people or the council to pay your rates. You physically went in. These days, they tell us it's easier. You either log on and do it, PayPal or all sorts of things. You phone up and give banking details. There are lots of areas where we can be dudded. And it seems as though we are getting dudded. In fact, the most recent statistics, it's for 2009, identity crime affected around 4.4 million Aussies. Now, when we talk about identity crime, you get somebody phone up and say, "Hi, I'm Graham Gilbert. I want to pay off a bill," and you rattle off the numbers of the bank details because you've skimmed them from somewhere. Let's find out about it. My next guest, and we've spoken to him on a number of occasions, he is a financial expert. He's founder of the Your Family, Your Money group and author of 4 personal finance books. So his credentials are second to none. Wilson Luna. How are you, Wilson?
G'day, Graham. How you going, mate? Thanks for having us on your show, huh?
Always a pleasure. You and the family keeping well?
Yeah, we are, mate. The little one's growing up. He's almost 4 now, so it's becoming a handful, but that's all part of the fun of it.
It is all the magic of it, isn't it?
It is, mate.
And you and I have only blinked, and he was just he was only 18 months last time we blinked.
Yeah.
Now he's nearly 4.
Scary.
Now, his generation, it's going to be all internet banking and credit cards. He'll probably grow up and hardly ever see cash.
Yeah. Oh, mate, times have changed. Unfortunately, look, it's part of the times and we're not going to be able to stop it. What we can do, though, or what we should be looking at doing is the amount of credit card and I suppose just overall identity theft that's going on is it's getting to an epidemic level at the moment. And it's all because we're not used to people so readily or so easily being able to get hold of our details so easily.
Well, we've also been very laid back in Australia, haven't we? We just assume nobody will try and dud us, but we also need to remember you've got people around the world who can hack into the Pentagon, for argument's sake, which you'd think would be the most secure internet and system in the world.
Yeah. Look, we did a little bit of research into different ways that people could get your identity or get at least personal details that could affect you. And just to roll off a few, obviously through the internet, some unsecured sites, when you release personal information to access things, you can easily get that type of information taken off. Secondly, you can go, and what some fraudsters do is that they're actually forwarding your mailing address somewhere else. So they go in there and they pretend that they're you. They get a few details probably out of your bin or something.
Yeah.
And then they'll go to the post office and fill out the paperwork and forward all your mail to them. So suddenly they start becoming, I suppose, owners of the information that should be coming to you. And that's how they get that type of information. Then there's the phishing, which is I don't know if you've ever had one of those emails coming through, and I've been getting a few of them lately, which is someone acting like they're the bank or a credit card company and saying...
Mate, you get about 20 a day, every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. And it's frightening because people still fall for it.
Do you know what they've... I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you've got such a sophistication in the way fraud's done on the internet. Like, last time I travelled through it just to see what the next side was, and there was literally one of the banks, I won't mention the bank that it was, but they literally mimicked the entire site. So you would think you're on that bank. Yeah. And that in itself, that's where the scary bit gets, because how do you, let's say you've recently paid a bill, and sometimes they try and grasp you with, look, last bill that you paid didn't go through, so they almost try and catch you out on the coincidence that you probably did pay a bill.
Yeah.
And they'll get you in there. That's the sophistication of it's what really scares me, to be honest.
Yeah, and we'll also get callers on programs like this, Wilson, and particularly elderly people who are a lot more trusting because they've been brought up to just assume that, authority is somebody you answer to. Somebody will phone up and say, oh, g'day, it's, Graham Gilbert from the XYZ Bank. I guess just taking potluck that they've got an account with that bank. And if they hit the jackpot there, they say, just to make sure it's you, can you give me some details? We're just checking it is you. And as I keep saying to them, if the bank is supposedly calling you, they will have all those details. So never give details to anyone claiming to be a bank or a building society or a credit agency.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really scary, especially what you said where the more elderly people, they're used to, I suppose, a different era where your bank manager might have called you up.
And
right. Because you got used to that one-on-one relationship, you don't realise that it could be anyone from India or from any country, China or the States, anywhere, calling you up from there. And the communication channels are so much easier to get to that they can sort of use that type of information overseas, etc. So, yeah, that's a really scary one when they do that. So never, ever, ever. And I know this is easier said than done because I recall it was around about, and I'm guilty of this, about 3 months ago, I actually got a call, and it was someone from one of the banks saying, look, we sent this out, etc., etc. And as they said, look, we just want to check that your address is, and it just sort of rang a bell.
Yeah.
I have to admit, it was on the tip of my tongue to give my address, and I thought, how easy would that have been?
And if people like you, with due respect, with people like you almost fall for it, a lot of people are going to tumble right on in.
Yeah. The best thing to do when that happens, by the way, is, and I know for your listeners, is if you can, always say, great, look, can you give me a number I can contact you on? And at least that way you'll know whether that's who you should be contacting.
Yeah.
Because that makes it so much easier and sort of protects you that you're not giving the information to someone you shouldn't.
And also you touched on people redirecting your mail, which I guess is easy. You go into the post office and fill in a redirection form, say you're going to be away or whatever. I must admit, we had a call here, I don't know, probably a year ago, and somebody said that they had been frauded, and when it was all checked back, somebody had, I guess, done as you've suggested, that they had grabbed mail, and what they'd picked up was a power bill. Because on your power bill or your telephone bill or what have you, if you pay by credit card, it's got your name, your address, and your credit card details. And I must admit, at our household, I don't pay many bills. Gail does all of that. But I went home and I said, just show me the latest phone and power bill. And yes, they're all on there, all the credit card details. So I guess somebody looking, if you're walking along, particularly if the mailbox isn't secure, if you see that sort of mail, there's a good chance you're going to pick up a lot of information, aren't you?
Yeah. No, look, no. That, what they're doing, what there's certain fraudsters that what they do is they pay people to go through your rubbish.
All right. Yeah.
And
what, like a commission basis?
I don't know. I don't really know the payment system, to be honest, or whether there's a commission.
Well, you got to find out, mate. I'm concerned now.
When I heard that, I couldn't believe that people would actually do that. But obviously, there's every type out there. That's why one of the reasons, if you get any personal, invest in a shredder.
Yeah.
Absolutely invest in a shredder.
And they're only about $60 or $70. And they work brilliantly. Through it goes. No,
look, one of the best investments you can make is, like you said, even the electricity bills, just shred it. If you've already paid it, shred it.
Yeah.
Or keep it on file if you want to hold records of what you're paying, etc. Because, look, it's happening more and more, and the problem is that most people won't. I've had a client recently that it took about, I think it was around about 9 months that he found out that someone had actually stolen his identity. Went out there, got a car loan for about 30-40 grand, I think it was.
Yeah.
Put him in debt. Suddenly he found out, 6 months down the track that had happened. Here's the issue with it, that he actually had to hire a solicitor to prove that it wasn't him. And mind you, that's him, yeah?
So for having done nothing wrong, it probably cost him $10,000 or $15,000 to clear his name.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, the people took out the loan. There was a bad default on the loan. It went on his credit reference, and suddenly he has to do all this legal stuff to prove, hang on, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
So when you're in the police station, you probably have to do fingerprint check and everything just to prove your own identity. So that's the bad side of it, I suppose, and you don't want to be stuck in that.
Yeah, because there is a lot of information on any of us out there. Because we do have our credit card details at various places, and a lot of places. What was one somebody mentioned the other day? That's right. They'd applied for a credit card, so the card arrives. And apparently these days they arrive in two parts. You get the card and then the PIN number, and you phone some number, and they activate the card. And they were saying to me, how would you know? You phone somebody, and sure, you are phoning a bank or whoever you've got the card through, but you don't know if that person's a backpacker, earning some casual money doing weekend work because they work 7 days a week. But you phone that person, that they say, let's verify it. Well, while they're verifying, they could also be just jotting down, Wilson Luna, born on the X day of the X month of the X year, the card details, because apparently you go through the numbers on your card. So, as I say, you don't know if, it's gone are the days when you had a dedicated bank worker. These days you've got casuals and consultants and what have you working in there. You just don't know who's walking away with what information.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do, particularly they get privy to a lot of information. And although banks try and, I suppose, put Chinese walls between certain information, like you said, sometimes it goes through the cracks, and certain people will get information that they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
In terms of credit cards, Graham, one of the other things that people should be aware of, and part of our research this was quite alarming. The card skimming. When you go and pay for something over the counter, let's say you're at a bar or whatever, there's a practice going on at the moment, which is they've got a little machine at the back. So basically, let's say you hand over your card, suddenly they go out the back and they skim your card.
Yep.
And that picks up all the information. And that information, and I mean, obviously you'd have these people are fraudsters themselves, but there's other people that pay them to collect this type of information. Yeah. So they double swipe it. They swipe it one on where you pay. Yeah. So there's a little machine where you see it, and then there's another little swipe machine at the back, which is where they hold the details, so it basically uploads onto something.
Yeah, because I must admit, I have been to restaurants lately, and you hand over the card, because who carries cash? you hand over the card, and I guess we tell ourselves, it's easy to do it on the card because I'll have a record of what I've spent and where I've spent it, which is probably a false economy for all of us. But you're right, they either bend down behind the counter, to swipe or whatever they do, or in some cases they'll walk into the next room and come back and say, there's your receipt, hope you had a good night, thank you, and off you go. And the way it's done with a big smile on their face, you're not going to say, I guess you didn't dud me, did you?
And you know what you said at the beginning when we started chatting, which was, you pay for things in cash or in your, you've got used to. This is and I'm a bit paranoid with this. I will use my card when it comes to big establishments like, if I'm at Woolworths or I'm at. Mm-hmm. If they're smaller ones, unless I know them or I eat there regularly or I shop there regularly, just in case, I'll generally have cash on me.
Right, yes.
So I don't want to be going through that train of thought thinking, have they got information that I don't want them to have?
Yeah.
And a really good way around that as well is, have you noticed that the credit cards now, you're able to do pins on them instead of signing?
That's right, yes.
Big recommendation. I like that method because at least that way they would need to know your PIN in order to get all your information, or to get access to that card.
Yeah, but also, and we go back to stealing mail, and people have pointed out, because, the card comes one day and the PIN the following day or what have you. So if people have got access to your letterbox, and okay, you might live at such and such an address and your box isn't locked, and somebody walks past and there's clearly a credit card there, and they know if they come back tomorrow there'll be a PIN, because you won't know that the card has arrived yet if they've knocked it off. With that PIN, doesn't it make it easier for them that they can just scroll any signature on the back, but when they go to the checkout or the restaurant or whatever, they'll just, I'll pin it. It could be anybody, and there's no handwriting evidence, is there, to attach them to the fraud on your card?
Yeah, look, the best answer for that, and there's no good answer, but the best one is get a PO box.
Right, yes.
I know it's an investment, But the way things are, especially like you're saying that anyone can just pop by there, because I agree with you completely, is if you've got a PO box, at least any information like that you accept, you direct it there.
Now, you talk about having some cash in your pocket, which means that Wilson has needed to go to the hole in the wall or the ATM. I must admit, I get a bit paranoid there because we read so much and working in communications, we know how unobtrusive a camera or recording device can be. How common is that becoming here in Australia?
More and more.
Yeah?
More and more. And again, the best, the protection is best when you're putting in the pin, put a hand over it. And I know this sounds, we were doing this with Anna, the one thing we kept saying, is this over the top? But then when you start looking at the figures, you say, it's not, because, someone grabs your pin because someone's cameraed it and they put a little device on the machine which skins your card.
That's right.
Basically, you're in big trouble because they've got access to all your information. So,
but because again, you and I are of the generation, we assume if we put something into a bank's ATM, it's going to be safe. Or a building society or whoever. We just assume, we haven't gone to an independent, we've gone to, I don't know, the NAB or the Commonwealth or Westpac or whoever, ANZ. We seem to think, we've put it into their machine and that's our financial institution. It's going to be safe and we're going to be covered. But we're not always covered, are we?
No. And that's happening more and more. That's the scary part about it. And you know what once they've copied your details, apparently they can just put it onto even a hotel. You know the cards to open a hotel room? Yeah. They can literally ascribe it on that and use that as your PIN card.
Really?
And it will work. That scared the hell out of me when I heard that, because I thought, okay, this is, so all they need is obviously a camera view of your PIN number. Yeah. And then if they skim it through they put this little machine on top of it and they've got it. So that in itself is, protect yourself. When you're doing the pin, make sure you've got your hand right over it and you do it with no one looking.
It just worried the heck out of me.
Yeah. At the end of the day, there's no matter how many measures we take, there's always a chance. But what we've done is I've broken it down into 5 steps that people can at least think about or sort of implement, that at least they'll know, I suppose. They're not 100% safe, but at least it's going to mitigate any chance of that happening or reduce the risk anyway.
All right. If I can play school teachers, let me ask you, and you explain what it means. As you say, you've got 5 points. Yep. Secure and shred.
Yeah. 1, secure, get the post box that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Shred, buy yourself a shredder. So like you said, any documents like bills or anything, shred them. Don't put them in the bin because someone could look through your bin. Yeah.
Now, step 2, and I must admit I am absolutely non-technical in all aspects. Be tech savvy. How technical do we need to be?
Okay, 1, watch out whenever you're giving information. Make sure it's a secured site, not an unsecured site, because there's a lot of sites out there that are just there collecting information, obviously. And you want to know who you're giving personal information to. Sometimes you just need to give personal information to access a site, etc.
But how secure is over the internet? As I say, you've got people hacking into the Pentagon and what have you. Okay, if I'm paying a bill, or it'd be Gail, if she's paying a bill, which she does over the internet, how secure is that? Because you've no idea where that information is going and where it could potentially be downloaded.
Personally, I make sure that if I'm ever paying something over the internet, I'll generally use things like PayPal or certain institutions that at least I trust that they only work with certain vendors. Right. Unless I really know the business that I'm buying it from. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, there's always that chance that you're buying of somebody that you might not be that safe.
Yeah, admittedly, if I can just interrupt, she would never use eBay or what have you, but she'll pay the power bill over the internet, and she'll pay telephone bill over the internet. Those sorts of household things. Again, you've no idea, have you, if it leaving her workstation to arriving at Country Energy or whoever, that no one is intercepting in between.
Generally speaking, if you're doing it from a bank,
right,
from a bank site, and it's one of the major power companies, etc., you're reasonably safe because they've got BPay Direct, so they're more directly linked with the bank.
Right, okay.
And banks got huge systems to protect against. Obviously, nothing's 100% foolproof.
Right.
But they're fairly safe in the way that, I suppose, the technology and the dollars that they put behind making their payment systems more secure than anything else. So if you're paying from the bank site, you're generally okay.
Yeah, like even things these days like car registration, you don't need to go in on face to face. It's all done over a computer. But again, you're talking about, significant amounts of cash, aren't you?
Yeah. And to add to that, watch out. There's a big watch out clause there, which is if you're ever using, especially now that a lot of people, I don't know who knows, they access computers from everywhere. I don't do it myself, but let's say there's someone, they get into those internet kiosk or
the internet cafes, yeah.
If you're ever on one of those and you need to be in one of those, don't ever save any of your information in there. So if you're in there, I wouldn't recommend doing any. You're basically, your protection is the safety of that particular cafe, which in a lot of cases you won't know how safe they are or not. So I would always recommend never save your details on there, and if possible, only transact, if you do have to transact, through your own computer, through your own network, etc. At least that will reduce it. But nothing guarantees that it won't happen anyway, but at least that'll mitigate it somewhat.
Now, step 3, embrace change. And here's one where I must admit I've never thought of changing the PIN that you're about to explain, because I have one in my head, and that's the one for absolutely everything. It has the one PIN number with me.
Oh no! Okay, no.
I'm being honest to you.
No.
Mate.
That's good actually. It's not good, but it's common because we all remember one number, and that's the way that we remember it. Look, the reason for it is that if for whatever reason someone gets one of those numbers, they basically got access to everything.
Right.
Or even if they get one, the best way to do it is to say, I do it on a regular basis about every 3 months. And every 3 months I will, I've got a file that says, all the PIN numbers that used to be, and then I'll go through them and I'll change them all again.
Do you have a system, and don't say what it is, but do you have a system where it's either birthdays or addresses that you've lived in, house numbers and street numbers, or do you pull random numbers?
No, exactly what you said. I've got a system that I wouldn't forget, so I know that I've moved on to the next one. Don't tell us what. But that's a good idea, because that way you'll remember it all the time. Yeah.
Now, monitor and protect. What are we protecting and what do we monitor?
This one is one of my key. This is really highly recommended. Let's say, for argument's sake, that someone was to take your identity.
Yep.
And they went down to, car yard and said, look, I'm Graham, I want to purchase this $150,000 car because I'm a very successful announcer. And they go, great, of course.
Yeah.
They sign up all the paperwork. The minute that gets signed up, there's called a reference check, which is Vita Advantage. You sign up for a service. It costs around about $40.
Right.
And what happens is, if anyone checks your reference, and generally you'll get your reference check whenever you go for credit.
Yep.
It will email you saying, XYZ Motor Company just finished doing a reference check on your account.
Right.
And you suddenly look back and you go, hang on, I'm not buying a car.
Yeah.
And that will check all transactions through your credit. It costs something like $40 a year.
Right.
And not to give a plug to anyone, but it's Vita Advantage.
But if I'm frauding someone, in my documentation, wouldn't I give an email address and the email would come to that?
No, because see, whenever you go out, let's say I'm frauding yourself, and I'm talking about, let's say I grabbed your identity and said I'm going to go out there and get a personal loan.
Yep.
That organisation that I'm getting a personal loan or a car loan on has to do a credit reference check on me.
Yep.
Because otherwise they will never lend me the money.
Sure.
When they do the credit reference check, Vita Advantage, which is a credit department, automatically sends you an email because you're under Vita Advantage, because you purchased this service.
Yep.
And they will email you going, XYZ Motor Company has just finished conducting a check on your credit.
Right, yeah.
You'll look at that and you'll go, hang on a minute, I didn't go and buy a car. So it will bring up an alarm bell.
Excellent.
It's 40. I think it's $40 last time I checked, but the best $40 you do in your life, and because you at least know that if someone's going to go and cheat your identity, you will pick it up along the way.
Now, you also talk about minimising exposure. I guess that would depend on a person's lifestyle, would it?
It does actually a bit. It's that whole thing about, some people like saying, it depends on your lifestyle, but some people like, I've got a $20,000 limit on my credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I always like the fact that, this is just a personal view, I always like the fact that, number one, I like debit cards better than credit cards.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that I know that I'm spending what I already own.
Can I get you just to explain to people the difference between a debit and credit card? Because some people just think a card is a card, but one, you're spending your money. The other one, you can go into the never, and before you know it, you've racked up a fair debt and probably 25% of interest.
Yeah, look, exactly. The main difference being that the debit card is your money, so it's like it comes out of your normal everyday account.
Yep.
And the advantage of it is that you can attach a MasterCard or Visa, etc. onto it, so you'll still get some people really like the frequent flyer points.
Yeah.
Just make sure that if you do go for one of them, make sure work out how much you're paying a year for the fee for having that.
I was going to say, Wilson, when was the last time you jumped on a jet using your frequent flyer points? It'd be a midnight flight, which would take you from about Mascot to the Illawarra. Yeah. I wonder if people ever stop and think about how much they spend to be able to jump a domestic jet from Sydney to Melbourne, for argument's sake. Yeah. Quite a lot, believe me.
Yeah, look, 100 million% agree with you, Graham. Yeah. And that's why they've got to compare, because sometimes, once in a while, a bank will do a loss leader card.
Yeah.
Where they won't charge much, and they'll give you the frequent flyer points.
Right.
And when they do that, well, already that you're spending your money, you might as well be accumulating points. So from that point of view, as long as you make sure you check out I suppose, how many points and whether it's worthwhile and how much the annual fee is, etc. I'm not uncomfortable with it, as long as I like debit cards, so it comes out of your particular savings.
Yeah.
The difference with credit cards is, like you said, it's credit. You're basically asking the bank for let's say $5,000-$10,000 credit or $1,000 credit amount, and you can spend up to that amount, and at the end of the month you get. Usually the whole term is 55 days from the beginning of the month to pay it back. If you do that, you won't pay any interest on it.
Yeah.
But if you go a day over, you start racking up interest, which, like you said, can go anything in the 20-25% range.
And that's what people have got to be aware of. Yeah. And don't go and cry to the bank and say, but I was only 2 days over, because it's not the poor old person behind the counter who has done it. We have this non-personal computer that says Graham Gilbert or Wilson Luna, their account should have been paid on the, what's today, the 14th of October, and we've gone in on the 16th. Well, for the entire period of that 55 days of grace, because that's how it works, doesn't it? You've paid, let's say, 23 or 24% for that entire period.
It's insane. And the worst part of it, the one thing that I'd really dislike credit cards because of what you're saying. The worst part about it is that if you look at any credit card statement, generally speaking, they tell you there's a minimum amount, which is about 3% of the whole bill.
Yep.
And they highlight that and they put it in bold.
Yep.
So most people would just pay that amount, which if you only pay 3% at a rate, let's say it's accruing at 20%, it basically means you almost never pay it back.
Yeah, you're going backwards. Each payment, you're taking a couple of steps backwards.
Yes. That's why I don't like it. But if you're fairly, I suppose, disciplined and you know what you're doing and it's okay. Just take note of that part of it, because it's, like you said, it can be really dangerous if you let it get out of control. Yeah,
well, you mentioned the Visa Advantage Identity Crimes Report. That showed last year 1.5 million Australians, remember we're only 22 million, 1.5 million Aussies had their credit cards skimmed, and 1.2 million had their bank account illegally accessed. So, as Wilson says, secure and shred, be tech savvy, embrace change, monitor and protect and minimise exposure. Otherwise, we really do only have ourselves to blame, mate.
Yeah, look, the scary figures, and not only that, when they surveyed Australians, they said that 80% of them, funnily enough, were concerned about identity theft.
Yeah.
But 70% haven't put any protective things in place to do that. So, because it's Fraud Awareness Week, so I thought I'd bring it up and I'd go, look, if nothing more, think about the little 5 steps, and if it helps in any way, implement 1 or 2, and that could end up saving you thousands of bucks if, for whatever reason, some fraudster or some, And yeah, I don't think of them very fondly, what they do. And if they get hold of your details, they're going to be spending, or at least, putting you up the wall with credit that, you worked your butt off to get, and that's not good for anyone. So if you can protect it as much as you can.
You're going to hate me, but I was talking to the big boss today, just in passing. He happened to be on this particular floor, and I said, I'm going to be talking about identity fraud tonight, and he said, oh, yeah. And I said, I want to start a new lobby. I want to be paid in cash again. I think he thinks I was joking. He sort of huffed and walked off. But I said, that way I know what I've got. I can go and pay people. I don't have to worry about being frauded.
Yeah, mate, don't underestimate that approach. I'm telling you, it seems like the safest approach in today's era.
Oh, I'm glad you've said that. I'll tell him I've got backup.
No, don't use my name.
Oh,
though,
yes,
please.
I will. Oh, he holds you in the highest regard. You have a good night, mate. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, champ, and take it easy, yeah?
Thanks, Wilson.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Mate. Wilson Luna there, author of a whole range of finance books, but financial expert, and founder of a great group which is called Your Family, Your Money. He certainly knows what it's all about, but it's frightening, isn't it, to think that people are still being ripped off and they're losing their money and not getting it back. And if you find out you've lost your money, you've then got to go and pay for legal advice to clear the record. Talk tonight, 13 12 69.